trying to figure out a way of accomplishing that goal that I stated earlier. And I actually think you can just, since you guys, I can SSH to a port that maps into the physical device.
Yep.
Correct? Yeah, you can, I'm just going to experiment with it in one of my lab right now. But should be able to actually use the Puppet NetDev provider. Basically put a device proxy agent, you might say, that accepts the configuration and actually just stream that base config through the console port. So without any hackery. It would be neat if you could run the Puppet Master daemon on the device, which I believe you have enough capacity now.
I think we do too.
So, neat. I'm going to be playing with it.
I'm sure when the engineers watch this as well, they're going to.
Well, it's all, I mean, there are some large data centers which may or may not have my code on it that stream into their network devices in similar ways without using Puppet. And it would be much more efficient to do it this way in Sandy, actually.
Yeah. So in that consideration of an SSH session fired off, the port range is 3000 for SSH, 3001 for port 1,
Yeah.
port 2 is 3002. You can change that if you want, but we had customers with this heavy console management software that was just shooting off all these sessions simultaneously. So this product meets those needs, and we found those companies are large utilities, metropolitan type cities, things like that, where people are heavy on the software for audit trail logging, and things like that. So this device meets that need, and it also meets it at the end of a fiber run. So you can break off another color and pair, and you can have access to it throughout a metropolitan area. It does have a GPS antenna port, so you can actually map to its physical location if you needed to, and feed some of that information back. Yep.
You might have covered, I think you may have covered this one. I just want to confirm that your ports have dual personality, so I can run it as an Ethernet port and a console port, correct?
No, it's console port. It's RS-232. What this does is this new unit can flip from a Cisco, from a straight through Cat5 to a Cisco device to a rolled cable. So we can flip the pin signals on transmit and receive.
One of the nice things on some of your other product lines was you actually had Ethernet ports on it too, so I could have the out-of-band IP management of the devices in the rack aggregate into it.
It's considered. It's on the roadmap. It's considered, and we still have that product. It's the 421634. It's got 34 Ethernet ports.
Yeah.
We would consider that for this product family with gigabit as well. So.
Okay.
It's quite modular inside, but like the serial port modules are all separate, and we just have to build and plug in an Ethernet module. So it's something we thought about.
Yeah.
So we've had requests for, in the data center, both wireless access, because people aren't pulling copper to racks and rows, and PoE. So we do have PoE devices as well. So if someone just had one run of copper back to a core switch, they could send these out down the rows or racks and not have to worry about a wall wart or power feed or something else to a small device in the bottom of the rack. Giving up, 4 serial console ports to 4 big blade switches, things like that.
I was kind of thinking, like, if you can solve the problem of streaming the initial config onto the switch beneath it, you kind of get outside of that need. Although it's nice to have your management and your production networks effectively segregated. But I mean, it's not a product request. Just it's neat in the older products they were able to do that. Especially we were able to basically proxy over SSH the management IPs. So say you have like an array that's in the middle of nowhere, and the CLI, like EMC arrays, you have to have IP access to do a lot of the low-level maintenance. Being able to port that back up is really, really neat. I'm assuming you still have that capability. You still have the ports in there.
Correct, we do.
Okay, so you can plug an Ethernet port that's somewhere in the box on there into your network, and
we can tunnel through. We have a client that does that. STT connector port forwards from your client through the production LAN to the management LAN, which is saying a dual network interface, and gives you access to that private IP securely over an SSH session.
Cool.
So that was the project that Opengear did and put up on SourceForge, I think 6-7 years ago. So over time with the open source community, we have given back and we have helped develop and further things like network UPS tools, where we did some work for SNMP on that, wrapping it up into a GUI to be able to manage and monitor UPS systems in a wiring closet or in a data center, whether it's serial, SNMP, or USB. So having the capability to look at UPS systems and find out what the battery life is like and if they're holding a load. with the vendor agnostic approach, you don't have to worry if it's just one vendor and having to load their client on the server nearby. So there's also PowerMan PDU that we have inside the device, where we control basically any vendor's switch PDU, serial, SNMP. So we can tie that in with a hotkey. So once you set up your install, if you have certain ports plugged into certain, say, Cisco equipment, with the ~P, you can bring up a hotkey. You can power cycle those, send out the SNMP messages or serial at the same time simultaneously to dual bus. Makes management a little bit easier. That way we don't have to go find out what PDU it's plugged into. So we correlate that information into one screen. This is one of the other unique things about our product, and also came from the open source community. Let's see, what else can we discuss?
So you have a small LCD, it's something you don't normally see on devices anymore. Tell me what's the use of it? What does it show me?
From what I understand, this LCD provides immediate IP address, quick diagnostics, if it's online, if the cellular is up or if it's not, and a baseline measurement of the device and ability to set up an IP address out of the box. So if someone didn't have a laptop or some device to be able to manage it immediately, they can do it with their thumbs and the LCD screen. Is that pretty much aligned with?
Yeah. Future use.
Sure. Okay.
And are those, the Ethernet ports there, the SFP and copper, are they dual media, like is it
It's either or. So
either or?
Yeah.
It's not actually four.
Exactly, it's
Okay.
two. There's two channels and you can use either or.
And can you do that on a per port basis? You could do one copper and one fiber if you wanted to?
I believe so, yeah, that's correct, yeah.
For SNMP, I assume it's obviously sending traps to an NMS or something, but can I actually set things, can I actually modify that box via SNMP? Because I know it depends, right? Sometimes you can only read stuff, but are you allowed to actually push things to it?
To change the configuration of our device itself?
Sure.
I don't think so. No, you would have to have, it's stored in an XML config file, it would need to be sent over a config command.
Okay.
Over the command line.
Well, I was just thinking that Van Collins asking about, ways to actually do his automation thing.
Yeah. Yeah, not at this time.
My life in automation does not necessarily interact with SNMP.
No, I know. Yes, I realize SNMP is Stone Ages, but
Yeah, what's SNMP?
security's not my problem.
It's another channel for getting statistics back out of the device, but pushing it is not ideal. RESTful API is.
I'm just trying to push the envelope here. I want to take an old technology and,
Yeah.
Want to drag race Model C now?
We actually have had some interest in acting as an aggregator for SNMP for devices we're connecting to. People do still use it.
What's the limit on the micro SD card? Is it SD, SDHC, SDXC?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that one. I haven't tried it out personally, so I'm not sure. This thing's brand new, so that's a new to me question.
If it's brand new, you probably have an HCXC controller in there.
Okay.
I'm sure, Steven, you have enough of each version of the card. We could just power it on and try it real quick, don't you?
Storage! And is this unit gonna be shipping, when's it shipping?
Middle of August. So we have prototypes in customer production environments already, believe it or not, up and running and supporting current systems right now. So, but the bulk of them will be shipping in mid-August. And soon to follow after will be an 8-port model and dual DC versions. So that's kind of the second rev. This is the first rev of the new platform. The second rev will come September, October.
So what's the list? Full 48 ports, fully loaded, everything.
Fully loaded is about $48.95. That's with LTE, 4G, 48 ports, Wi-Fi, the whole thing.
And when does this become public knowledge? When is it being?
Today and yesterday.
Okay, so it is.
It's on your
it is
website
out there.
Yeah, it went up today on the website, and the press release, I think, hit the wire today. And
That whole live stream thing just kind of.
This is not live stream, alas.
Oops.
Well, the Twitter stream at least.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any other questions about these products or this one in particular? or use cases, or how you can diagnose Wi-Fi over the SFP
Yeah, what
ports
kind
or
of
something.
antenna connectors are they on the Wi-Fi?
It's these two in the front right here. They're two SMA connectors.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking I could actually see that being in a rack, and you know, it may not be convenient to actually have
We do
cellular and Wi-Fi antennas sticking up in front of whatever's up
We
on
do
there.
have
or-
magnetic base mount antenna kits that allow you to put the antennas on top of the rack.
Okay.
One of my suggestions was to make sure the cellular antenna could glow when it was on. So I thought that would be pretty cool, but
Yeah.
that's still in product development. I wanted it shaped like a big halo, so it's like an angel saving you, you know?
Ask Cisco how the mood ring worked on their 1131 product.
Or Xbox 360.
What wireless authentication do you support? Enterprise, PTLS?
Yeah, let's take a look here. I forget, I can't.
Web only.
Shared secret.
For the Wi-Fi?
So wireless
The
field
client,
days,
yeah.
we throw water bottles when they say what?
No. You just shake our.
We don't
hands
invite
and
'em.
say,
Let me get you the actual specs here.
It's a mystery.
He's got an engineer on the line.
It's like when you phone a friend and who wants to be a millionaire?
Is that your final
Are
answer?
you sure you want to use the lifeline?
Yeah,
It's West, WPA, pre-shared
You
T,
got it.
WPA2, WPA none, PEEP, MSHAPI2, TKIT AES.
Plus the box is FIPS 140-2 certified. You can disable the unsecured ciphers. Most people use it with IPsec, SSH. Some use the OpenVPN, which is also a useful feature as well for either the small units or the large units, depending on how you want to set up your VPN.
So we sponsored the OpenSSL Software Foundation's validation of the OpenSSL on ARM processors. So previously they only did Intel, and we sponsored the first ARM, and we've just been through another round of that as well. It's an incredibly painful process for those guys.
And it's 5 gigahertz.
What SFPs do you support?
We have 4 that we're going to sell with the unit. Christian, do you want to talk about this, or?
I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's, we support essentially all standards, and there's 4 that we're gonna supply ourselves, which were some longer distances, some shorter distances. I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think they're on that sheet either.
No, they're not. There was 4 common ones that we're going to sell and support and supply with it. So people can purchase them from us or from Cisco if you want, or.
Are you going to disable the board if it's not for you?
No.
Opengear.
I was just thinking of different distances,
Cisco, right?
Yeah.
lost budgets that you guys took into consideration for that, but you can just use any standard SFP, I guess.
Yeah, any standard SFP. I mean, our goal isn't to retire on selling SFPs. Our goal is to sell our technology, and our software is built into a hardware platform that meets a cost criteria as well as a feature criteria. So it allows, it's an open product. You got root level access, so you can really do whatever you want with it as well. We do have a full featured GUI on the front, so it's not all command line, but I know the guys that lurk in the command line, you can do quite a bit from there. So let's see here. What else can we tell you about this? Do you want to talk about any navel gazing future?
The single port version.
The single port. So I do think that is a good use case study, and I mean, $5,000 for an access point hanging off a tower, you need access to it? Yeah, that's something we'll take back.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to have something supportable versus, putting a Zigbee with the serial port, creating a mesh network. It's good for the hackers, but.
Yeah, we all know how to do the hack, but the thing is you need a productized version of it that we can actually sell with it, so that we don't have to then babysit and support that hacked version every time it breaks, and then fix the thing that we were trying to use to get into our piece of equipment.
It's already broken.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see one that's the size of like a serial port dongle.
We can do that.
Seriously,
Really
what?
cheap, and
There
just
was-
throw it on every serial port.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
that would be, you're
There
right.
was someone doing something close to that back in the days when sun was still vibrant. It didn't quite, it wasn't exactly a dongle, but it
Back
wasn't.
when
a lot
the
bigger.
sun still shone over the earth.
Sorry, Rob.
When dinosaurs ruled the earth.
I'd like to add that a couple of my customers first told me about Opengear quite a while back, and universal approval. So,
Nice.
well done.
Appreciate the accolades, you know, especially our support group and the guys that are building the products as well, so.
Do you have any other unusual applications for the small devices?
For the small devices, we talked about the floating fish farms. We're monitoring RFID chips on salmon that were coming in and out of the floating fish farms, which is unique. We have currently the deepest, or soon to be the deepest underwater console server on the planet. They're sending down to the University of Hawaii. We work with a gentleman named Brian Chi, who does a deep diving submersible that they built to go something like, I don't know, a couple miles deep, and our product is down there. It was the only one that met the criteria to support connectivity and sending back communications from the devices down there. And there was a reason to go with serial. He actually wrote up about it, and InfoWorld, I think, wrote an article about it. So that's another, we're the deepest console server on the planet. We don't have one in orbit yet, but
Yeah.
there's some home rocket kits we could try out.
You could do a Kickstarter.
What's that?
You could do a Kickstarter, put it in a satellite.
That's a great for the single port.
Yeah. You might not have room for 4 ports.
Slap it on
In a
those
satellite
Google
that
balloons.
big.
Yeah,
Who's second?
I think they make them around.
Who's the second one?
Who's the second deepest?
I don't know, a boat somewhere. So this is also unique. This one has dual SIMs, and it's one module dual SIM support that was designed in part for a bus system, a metro system in Spain that allows for SIM hopping. So hop between the carrier, the SIM with the best signal, provide wireless access point service for customers on the bus, as well as read data back over any type of serial connectivity that they wanted as well.
Start using that to provide like mobile Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, but we, there's some tweaking, like a splash page type things like that, not really built into it. So we didn't want to be a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah.
So we have the capability of doing it, and some people kind of build on this platform themselves to get what they want. But the most unique one recently that I found interesting was supporting gunshot detector systems throughout the country. We work with a company called ShotSpotter that puts these up in the up on rooftops and NEMA enclosures.
Yeah.
And it's using the Verizon LTE network, and they're also going to use AT&T. They have a global application, but they have all these radios that communicate back, and they were doing it over wireline, and they were having to get up on sheriff's offices' roofs and things like this. So this eliminates the need for all that and provides the gunshot monitoring service. So recently they submitted a case study and a press release with us as well. So we're going to do a little press with them.
What is gunshot monitoring?
ShotSpotter, it monitors gunshots in a city when there's
Triangulation.
So what crazy ideas do you guys have for something like this? Robot. World domination.
That's right.
Maybe a robot that goes up and plugs into the serial console.
You could build it on that Cisco's new telepresence
Yeah,
mobile
yeah.
thing, right? So that you could add arms on it, so it could walk around and plug its own serial ports in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think you should come up with a robot that can type, and then you could use it on any kind of console.
I think it'd be cool to plug it into like a new Ford with sync technology, and I give it to my wife, and I could basically remote into the car from anywhere, and
And what, fix the sync system? There's no hope for
Didn't they just dump the same system?
You could reboot it though, that would help.
I know exactly what I would do.
Microsoft product.
I'd find one of those 2-year-long, low-power, Wi-Fi connected devices that phone home every 60 seconds. Either find one, hack one, or whatever, come up with the console port on that, right? Have those connect back, so your mesh APs or whatever the heck's up on top. Have those connect back to one of the console servers, wherever around that. That way you'd be able to use that as the kind of, just like you do it for your environmental sensors, use it for like distributed out of band.
That's pretty neat.
I'm actually working on a project right now, and I'm not going to mention who I work for at the moment, but we manufacture a vehicle or vehicles, and we have tests that we do a lot of different tests, and a truck may have a couple hundred sensors, serial sensors on it that could be doing anything from temperature, a lot of the sensors that we have on our vehicles already, and setting up mesh networks between the vehicles during these tests. I could totally see that being used actually, and kind of kicking that around already because I'm on that project, so.
Very nice. We do have these in the Ipswich Motor Speedway, right? The Ipswich Motorway, doing the street signs or the freeway. The big signs where everyone hacks them and says zombies are coming.
Yeah.
That's what they got these in there to prevent that from happening, and so they have technicians access and they pull out the local remote so people can't, do that thing.
Oh,
Do you have any published vulnerabilities for those ones?
It's Linux.
Actually, that'd be interesting to use with some home automation stuff. If you've got like a contact sensor type of, I can actually hit that with I use smart things at home, and it's the Zigbee or Z-Wave type technology, and I can tie that into a presence sensor to start kicking off stuff like turning up or turning down my APs or securing different parts of my network if I'm home or not.
And for monitoring, alerting,
Yeah.
you get SMS texts and everything else sent through it.
Yeah. Well, actually, that does that as
Oh, does
well.
it?
But yeah.
At our school, we're working on assisting students with a massive installation, working in art school. And they're putting audio sensors throughout the entire building. And they're also working with another school in New York City that's doing it outdoors in Manhattan. And they're mapping sound to show like a heat map of how many people are around in given areas. And the way they want to do it is hundreds of Android phones all connecting to my wireless network all over. This would be way better. So that's something right there that I immediately would put in for.
Are they doing like voice recognition? Is that a
No
camera?
voice recognition,
Yeah.
no actual audio is leaving the device. It's
Yeah.
taking a decibel reading and sending small packets.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
This is the Prism R project, okay?
I can't be the only one who thinks that. I can't be the only one.
These are the students that don't want to log into our wireless because they don't want me tracking them. So.
Are you running .1 NSA now?
Yeah.
But, I mean, remote censored because the code has been written so that it just takes a reading, converts it to a value, and feeds that value back to the main system. And doing that across hundreds of Android devices or a few dozen of these would be much easier, depending on how many sensors I could get plugged into it. Maybe some sort of audio sensors as serial.
That'd be interesting. And we do have hardware watchdogs, cellular watchdogs. We have a lot of technology built into it as well that we've already kind of hacked in there. So it's already a finished solution in a lot of ways for things to connect to it like that. I think the one port idea is great. I think one of the number one spots we see ourselves replacing is the US robotics modem in a closet hooked up to a console port. That's still the case for compliance, and some corporate contract mandates a 1 FB dropped into a customer's closet.
AT&T has those slathered all over.
Sprint does too. As a former US robotics employee, I have to object to that use case. Yes,
So when it comes to safety though, there's a lot of oxygen tanks at mine shafts and such that we've been replacing those modems as well. So we can tell the monitoring level of the oxygen tanks. So it'll report back, not doing a dial back that the phone doesn't work anymore. So they know when to come out and fill it out for safety reasons as well. So oxygen tank monitoring, things like that.
You have a radiation resistant version?
He's serious.
No, my company, we actually build distributed computer systems and robotics to inspect nuclear
nuclear plants.
plants.
I don't know if we have that part number.
Just put in some lead, man.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It only has to live for like a couple hours.
Is that what you tell your techs that do it now?
Yeah, so we're gonna handle your RMAs.
It comes in a hazmat container.
What that does bring up a good question though. Are they, or do you have any models that are IS, intrinsically safe, for those areas that?
No, we don't have any approvals for medical, blood, human waste, or any of those. We don't have coatings or casings supplied with that type of technology.
What about like places where there's fumes, combustibles, that type of thing?
No, that
Hazardous
requires.
location.
That's a good point, though, because I mean, you think about hospitals, you think about all the medical devices, and you think
Right.
about everything that you're trying to track. You know,
Yeah.
it's like a hospital, I mean, that's another pretty obvious use case.
We're in the hospitals a lot with the wiring closets, with UPS systems, direct connectivity to the Cisco console equipment. A lot of hospitals are multi-storied, so Verizon's gone in and said, hey, look, we'll give you a discount if we put this cool tower on top of the roof. So those are a good customer base of ours because they fit all the criteria.
And what you do with asset management in hospitals, you actually put active RFID connecting the Wi-Fi network and track them that way generally. So spend a lot of time in hospitals for work and, you know, people know other reasons. But you look around and see these little white squares. It's strapped to expensive stuff. Asset management is, I'm sure you do a lot more than I could ever do. But total side note, you know, talk about that, the low power distributed remote console.
Yeah.
So I was going through the Zigbee docs, and they actually have a reference for a solar powered Zigbee. So you can do solar powered Zigbee console out, and then have that Zigbee mesh connect back and just plug in a node on the end of that.
So it'd be end-to-end wireless.
It'd be Zigbee wireless, Zigbee mesh wireless, or 3D Robotics actually makes, out of San Diego, makes a cheaper transceiver. It's like about 1/4 to 1/8 of the cost. I don't know what their bulk costs are, but you create a mesh similar and pull that back. So use it for a data uplink and downlink from my UAV.
So is there's 48 access points, 488 access points at Cisco Live?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I don't
So
remember yet.
have a need for 488 one-port devices for remote management of those?
Just the ones in the cafeteria.
Yeah, just ones in
That's
there,
all.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's all would probably be the worst.
Well, you can do the power from just figure out a splitter off the PoE, obviously, but
Oh, that's in.
that's easy enough. And then what you call it? Something like at Google in the conference rooms, all for years of the conference displays of, you know, who has the room. It's just it's a little hardware hack device with attaches to Wi-Fi and has a solar panel on it. Right, it's simple because you're building power. Normally has enough light on it. All you have to have, no one's there, it doesn't care. Right, enough battery power lasts the night.
I guess my only question would be, what's the distance of a Zigbee mesh network, you know, like what's the spread distance versus what's the typical deployment for a high density, you know, AP environment?
Oh, it's a lot different because the Zigbee
Yeah.
type technology is used in the smart meters, so
Yeah, I know.
distances between houses.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I can get multiple kilometers. I can get multiple kilometers with a direct thing. But anyways, I want to. Sorry, we're just nerding out. I mean,
Well, it sounds like you guys are excited by it. That's good.
I mean, it's funny. Like, I mean, I love open. I love your guys' open source contributions. I love the fact that you guys kind of bridge it in old and new world. Right? So console's old world. You know, open systems based is new world. The fact that you can do. And it sounds really stupid when we talk about all this, not stupid, you know, superfluous, when we talk about all these, oh, we would have, you know, tracking salmon,
Yeah.
you know, connecting a submarine, but, you know, oddly enough, those corner cases are incredibly useful when you're solving problems that no one's making a product for.
Yeah, well, that's the future. I mean, that's what Cisco wants us to think, at least in the future. To bring it back to Cisco Live, I mean, they're talking about the Internet of Things and all that. Well, this is that. And that's pretty cool.
It's an enabler in that the submarine team doesn't want to mess around with radio or console or serial or other technology. They just want to solve a problem.
Exactly. So unfortunately, the Opengear guys have to go. So we're gonna have to wrap this up, but I'm glad that you guys could hear this, because one of the coolest things that I see at Tech Field Day is when a company comes in and stands up in front and people are like, yeah, whatever, I don't know what this is. And then suddenly they're like, oh, wow, I could use that to do, you know, and they get excited. And, you know, it's funny to think that a company that makes, well, that is exciting, but it is, you know, and that's pretty cool, right? So.
Oh, come on, the red one got my attention. It was like, ooh, shiny out too.
Ooh, red. So thank you guys for doing this. Thanks for coming in. And thank you, all of you guys, for joining us in here.